Hey, this is Evan Shapiro. I'm at South by Southwest 2025 for Content Crossroads. I'm here with Ruth Berry, who is the head of partnerships for streaming and broadcast at ITV. Let's start with, what the heck do you do?
That's a good question I ask myself.
Yeah, if you can explain it to your mum.
Yeah,
right?
actually, very good.
It should be that
What do I
simple.
tell my mum? So I sit within the ITV Studios family, and we are a global business of creating content and distributing content and publishing content around the world.
Commercial arm of ITV.
We are the commercial arm of ITV. And we operate in the UK alongside ITV, but then also very much a global footprint. And are one of the usually top 3 production companies in each of the markets that we're in. So we've got about 60 production companies in 13 markets.
Wow.
And then in particular, so global partnerships is the distribution business, as you would know it in the old world.
Right.
So I'm the president of distribution. And then also this extra bit called Zoo 55, which is the digital studio that we're starting to evolve to really sort of underpin digital exploitation and I guess change across the studio's business as we follow our audiences into different areas and social and gaming and fast channels and kind of what that means for us as an IP owner. And I think the easiest thing that I'd say to my mum is, if you believe that there is a large audience for Love Island who have never watched a long form episode on television, then they're watching it in other places, and we need to be more present in those places and really understand that audience, because they're an extension of the business that we've known and loved for a long time. But that extension is coming thick and fast, and we need to catch up, and we need to think about what those fans want from us. And they're still going to engage with our content in lots of different ways, and they're still going to want to buy the Love Island water bottle, and they're still going to want to play the game. And if you're a Hell's Kitchen fan, you still want the pots and pans, and you want to play the game in Roblox as well as watch it on fast or watch it on linear, however you like. So for us, what is the future of being a big IP owner and a content creator? We have an incredible creator economy in studios, but in the traditional sense. So I think we're moving ourselves onto this journey, and Z55 is the vehicle for us to really do that.
So you're looking for audiences across all platforms: streaming and broadcast, pay TV, and AVOD and FAST, right?
Yeah.
But in particular, Z55 is this digital department that you started within studios, which you're now fully forming as its own division at the company. How quickly did it grow from just a group of people around a bunch of cubicles into its own division? What's the trajectory looked like from a revenue standpoint that merited it now being called its own company?
Yeah. So it's probably about 4 years ago when I hired a guy that I knew in business development, as we called it then, which was really knowing that we'd need to develop this business. And we looked at, as a traditional B2B player, having licensed our content around the world for a long time, is how do we start to publish content that's not under license anymore? So, if you've got a 3 to 5 year old documentary that the markets don't want to buy from the UK, but there are still audiences that want to see it, how do we find them directly as opposed to going in this B2B world? So we started to publish content
primarily from your 90,000 hours of
95,000 hours of
95,000 hours of content. You're looking to mine new audiences and therefore new revenues out of content that is not being sold currently in the marketplace.
Spot on. So we'd go and find these audiences, and the monetization model mostly for social is YouTube. So we'd plant them into all sorts of different social medias, but YouTube is the one that started delivering us meaningful money. So we started to optimize the channels better. We started to curate content differently. So we've got lots of channels around The Voice. We've got the Hell's Kitchen channels. We've got the Graham Norton Show. We've got
multiple channels for each one of these pieces of IP.
And then even if there weren't single IP channels, how do we take all of those documentaries? So we published a channel called Our Lives, or Our World had nature documentaries on it, or Taste is the one that has...
These are long-form documentaries.
So there's long form, there's short form. We're experimenting with different things. We took a documentary in the Scottish Highlands and put 3 episodes together into a feature length, sort of just over an hour and a half feature-length show, did amazingly. I mean, absolutely amazing. The average viewing of that piece of content is 44 minutes.
Really?
And most of that content is viewed on the connected television.
Via YouTube?
Via YouTube. Yeah.
On connected television.
On connected televisions.
So it does seem that more and more of your asymmetrical, non-traditional distribution is winding up on the most traditional of devices, which is the television.
How ironic. But yes, we're seeing more of our content. It feels like YouTube's going through that evolution, right? And I think, we're seeing more content viewed on the connected television on YouTube. We're seeing the average length of viewing growing longer. And I think, the quality of content is getting better. So we see as people churn through all of that viewing.
Yeah, the quality of content being watched on YouTube is improving. Therefore, it is lengthening and it is becoming more like television.
Yeah.
But that in large part is because publishers like yourself are embracing it. Yes, the creators are getting better at their craft and people are watching podcasts for hours upon end. But ultimately, publishers like yourself getting on there and putting long-form documentaries on is a big part of it, why these platforms are turning into TV.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other end of the spectrum for that is, we've got a brilliant creative economy in the UK of producers.
Yeah, of course.
Who would not be earning any secondary income.
Newfound right. And it reboots their franchise for them.
So there's really interesting case for something like River Monsters, and partly because I'm looking at fish.
Oh, I love that show. Yeah.
But, it was a brand-defining show for Animal Planet, right? When it was commissioned.
Yeah, right.
20 years, I think it was 2013, first commission. And we were the distributor of that show for many, many years and have recently acquired the underlying IP for it and started launching fast channels and YouTube channels around River Monsters. It is our most successful fast channel that we have. And you look at that and you go, wow, a show that was commissioned in 2013 is suddenly finding an entirely new and different audience.
And younger
over 20 years later. Who knew, right? And so it's really amazing for us to go on this journey and see what audiences are engaging with and where we go from here.
Well, and you said, earlier as you were talking to your mom, I believe there's an audience for Love Island, which I would think is a really young show, but there's an audience for Love Island on social video, on FAST, on YouTube in particular, you said, that is completely different and new, and we'll never watch that necessarily on television.
Yeah, quite likely.
And I see it as an additive, incremental, brand new audience.
Exactly that. I think that's the important bit. It is incremental. And I think for a while, there's been this concern that it's cannibalistic on those audiences.
Right.
And I think what we're learning, and you've got to test and learn, right? And if you don't try, you'll never know. So I think there's an element of being
that phrase isn't necessarily easily adopted by everybody in your ecosystem. Let's be honest.
I definitely isn't. And
test and learn. Oh my goodness.
I know. Who knew it was a thing?
Right.
But in this space, you can do that. And I think testing and learning off the archive was a really safe space.
That's true.
So I think
best place to do it. It's not earning. There is no harm that can be done.
None whatsoever. So that is truly incremental, because otherwise it wouldn't be doing anything. So once you start to collect that data and you can learn more and more, I think you can dip the toe in the water and start. So let me try. I think the other bit with YouTube is that if it really was cannibalistic, take it down.
Right.
So, there's a remedy.
That's what Tesla, right. Stop doing it. Yeah. Doctor, it hurts when I do this. Stop doing that.
So you can stop doing it. So I think people start to get comfortable with this notion of, well, actually, what's the worst thing that can happen?
It doesn't work and you learn something. That's the worst thing that can happen.
And that really isn't too bad, right?
Right. That's actually a pretty good outcome. Exactly. Well, this has been a great conversation. You were great on the panel earlier. We'll put that up as well. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming to South by Southwest.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, did you have fun on the panel?
Yeah, I did. Really good panel, actually. And really interesting that we all come from such different angles, looking at whether it's the data, whether it's the advertising piece, whether it's the content piece. We're all seem to be in different stages of our journeys, kind of doing the same thing from totally different angles. So, yeah, really.
That's why we call it the crossroads.
Yeah, and it truly is.
See what we did there?
It truly is.
Thank you very much. This is Evan Shapiro. We're at Content Crossroads at South by Southwest 2025. We'll see you later.